Mamihlapinatapai. You are sitting with someone, a friend, someone you have feelings for, maybe someone you have known for a long time. There is something unsaid between you. Both of you know it is there. You can feel it in the pauses, in the way the conversation keeps almost going somewhere and then pulling back. Neither of you says it, not because you don't want to, but because saying it first means being the one who said it first. And that feels like too much. So you both sit with it, each silently hoping the other will cross the distance, and the moment passes without either of you moving. This feeling comes from the Yugen language of Tierra del Fuego, spoken by one of the most remote communities in the world, and it is called Mamihlapinatapai. It describes that shared look between two people who both want something to happen, but neither is willing to initiate. The word itself is considered one of the most difficult to translate in any language, not because the concept is complex, but because capturing the exact weight of mutual unspoken wanting in a single word requires a precision most languages never developed. Toska. It is a Sunday afternoon, and the day has no particular shape to it. Nothing is wrong. Nothing is especially right either. There is just this low, formless ache that does not seem to be about anything specific. Not sadness exactly, not boredom, something heavier than restlessness and quieter than grief. You cannot point to a cause, you cannot fix it by doing something. It just sits there, filling the afternoon with a kind of gray weight that is hard to explain to anyone who asks. The Russian language has a word for this that the writer Vladimir Nabokov once described as one of the most difficult Russian words to render in English. It is called Toska. Nabokov himself described it as a sensation of great spiritual anguish, often without any specific cause, a dull ache of the soul, a longing with nothing to long for. Russian literature is saturated with it. It is treated not as a disorder, but as a fundamental part of human experience, the feeling of wanting something unnamed, something the world does not currently seem to contain. Yugen, you are standing outside at night, looking up at a sky full of stars, and for a moment, something opens up. Not fear, not wonder exactly, but something in between. A profound awareness of the universe that is too large to hold on to, that arrives and then slips away before you can fully grasp it. Or you watch a film and a single scene does something to you that you cannot explain to anyone who is not watching. Or you hear a piece of music and something in it touches a place that does not have a name. In Japanese aesthetics, this is called Yugen, an awareness of the universe that triggers emotions too deep and too subtle for words. It is a central concept in Japanese art, theater, and poetry, describing the profound, mysterious sense of the beauty of the universe that exists just at the edge of what can be expressed. It is not happiness, it is not sadness. It is something older than both, a feeling of being briefly in contact with something that is always present but rarely noticed. Forelsket. There is a specific feeling that belongs only to the very beginning of falling for someone, before anything has been said, before anything has been confirmed, when everything is still possible and the world has taken on a slightly different quality because of this one person's existence in it. The air feels different. Ordinary things look different. You are more awake than you were a week ago. It is not yet love, not in any established sense. It is the feeling of something beginning, which has its own particular brightness that never quite returns once a relationship has settled into something real. Norwegian has a word for this. It is called Forelsket, the euphoria of falling in love for the first time with someone. That overwhelming rush of the very beginning before reality has had a chance to complicate it. It is considered one of the most beautiful feelings a person can experience, partly because it is so completely temporary. The moment it becomes something certain, it changes into something else entirely. Schadenfreude. Someone you know, not an enemy, just someone who has always seemed to have things slightly easier than you, makes a mistake. They trip in a public place, or they get a question wrong in front of other people, or something they were confident about does not go the way they expected. and you feel something. A small, brief flicker of satisfaction that you know is not entirely admirable. You do not want them to be seriously hurt, but something about their momentary stumble produced a reaction in you that was not entirely sympathetic. German calls this Schadenfreude, pleasure derived from the misfortune of others, and it is one of the most honest words any language has produced about human nature. Psychologists who have studied it find that it tends to appear most strongly toward people we perceive as having more than their fair share, people whose success feels like it came at some cost to our own sense of how things are distributed. It is not a flattering feeling, but it is an almost universal one. Wabi-Sabi. You pick up an old mug that has a crack running along one side, repaired at some point with a gold lacquer so the break is visible rather than hidden. And there is something about it that is more beautiful than if it had been perfect. A wooden table with marks from years of use, a garden where things have grown slightly sideways, a face with lines in it from decades of expression. Japanese aesthetics has a concept called Wabi-Sabi, the beauty of imperfection, impermanence, and incompleteness. It is the recognition that things are more interesting, more human, more real because of their flaws rather than despite them. The crack in the mug is part of its history. The asymmetry of the garden is evidence that something living grew there. Wabi-sabi is not just an aesthetic preference. It is a philosophical position about what makes things worth caring about, one that runs directly against the modern tendency to value things for how flawless they appear rather than how genuinely they exist. Onism. You are in the middle of something, a project, a conversation, a plan, and you become suddenly, vividly aware of all the other things you are not doing, every path you are not currently walking, every experience that is happening somewhere in the world that you will never have, every version of your life that closed off the moment you chose this one. This specific awareness has a name, onism. The frustration of being stuck in just one body, one place, one timeline, while the rest of the world continues without you. You are not unhappy with what you have chosen. You are simply, briefly, aware of the cost of choosing at all and of the fact that being anywhere means being nowhere else. The internet has made this feeling sharper than it has ever been. Every corner of human experience is now one click away, which means you have never had more vivid access to evidence of all the lives you are not living. Exulansis. You try to tell someone about something that happened to you, an experience, a feeling, a moment that meant something. And as the words come out, you can feel them falling short. The person listens. They respond kindly. But something about the way they respond tells you that what arrived on their end is not quite what you were trying to send. The experience, the real texture of it, did not make the crossing. You end up saying something like you had to be there, which is true but also not quite the point. The point is that being there would not have been enough either, because the experience belonged to something inside you that cannot be fully handed to another person through language. This is called Exulansis, the tendency to give up trying to talk about an experience because it is clear that other people simply cannot relate to it. It leads to a particular kind of quiet, where the most important things you have lived through end up staying inside because the distance between living something and describing it turns out to be wider than expected.